Hi everyone, it's Liz again, and today we're going to take a quick look at RStudio and some of the R programming behind a Shiny application, how to go about manipulating that data and what we can actually do with it. How is it better than using Excel? Now, one of the first things that I'd like to point out is that R is actually built on top of a lot of packages. These packages have been written by authors and are completely open source the majority of the time and can be downloaded from the CRAN library, which is an online library where you can download them from. So the packages will always be listed in your packages and you can install new ones using the install button. Each of these packages has a little different function and you get a little description as what it can do. But basically it contains a group of functions to do something very specific. One of the ones that I specifically like to use is data table. Data table allows me to do incredibly fast manipulation of large data sets, whether that be summarizing data, adding on columns, merging data. So it's something I'm very familiar with. I use it a lot in my work. And it doesn't mean that everyone else has to use it. There are lots of other packages that can do similar processes, and there are the core functions which are also within R, and anyone can use those. The first thing that we're going to do is design a small data set for us to have a little play with. So we're going to design a data table with one column set called platform. And within this platform, we're going to have Facebook repeated 10 times, Instagram repeated 10 times, Twitter repeated 10 times. And then we're going to have a second column called KPI. And we're going to have KPI 1 to 10. And since we have 3 platforms, I'm repeating this 3 times. So we can run that data set, and then we can view that data set. And you can see that we have our platform and our KPIs listed as I just described above. So now we want to go ahead and play with that data and maybe have a look at adding something onto it. So we take our data set, and in this particular example I'm going to just filter out the platform where it's equal to Facebook. And we're going to add a new column called value, and we want that equal to 100. So again, we run this, and we now have our new data set, which we can view over here, where we have Facebook and the value is equal to 100. And you can see Instagram and Twitter are all NA for value, because we haven't assigned anything to them yet. We can also take that data set, if we wanted to take that value and update it. We now want it to be 50 plus 10. So that's going to equal 60, obviously, and again we can run that and we can view our new, and it's now 60 all the way down. We can also take things such as the system date, store it as a date, and assign that as a new column, date. Again, view it now, and we have our value column still, and we have our date column now added in, so the 27th of July. So now we want to play around with that data. We want to see what it's all about. So we're going to take our data set and we're going to use this function, which is a pipe, which means take what we have before and do something else with it. So we're going to take our data set and then we are going to group it by our platforms. So we want to find the average by platform. So the next thing we want to do is summarize it. Our new column is going to be called average, and we're going to find the mean of the value. So we can run this, and we can see that we have Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The average is all 60. Not surprising since all our values are all 60. But we want to make it slightly more complicated than that. So let's take our data set. We're going to group it again, but this time group it by our platform and each of our KPIs. We're going to do the same calculation though. We're going to find the average, the mean. So we can do that. So now we have our platform of Facebook, KPIs 1 to 10, and the average again. And you can see there are 20 more rows, and if we wanted to see that further, we can go over here, select the data set that we're interested in, and you can see that we have our platform, KPI, and our average. Now, maybe we want to view that data visually. And again, we're going to use a different package called Plotly. Plotly allows for very interactive plots and is based on this pipe function of adding things to something. So the first thing we want to say is we want to take our data. So our new data set, add to, as a data table, and we're going to filter it where the platform is equal to Facebook only. We now want to add a trace, so we're going to tell it what we want as our X, so our KPI, and what we want as a Y, average. We're going to tell it we want a scatter chart. We then add things on again, so we're now going to add on the title. So our layout is now going to include our title is equal to Facebook. If we run this, we now get a scatter chart, and we have our title as Facebook, average versus KPI, and it's 60 all the way along as expected. As I say, this is very interactive and used a lot within Shiny, where we can hover over, we can zoom in, zoom back out, and we have a lot of different functions that we can do with it. We can play with everything from the spacing of the numbers and the grid lines, to the colours, to where the titles are, what information is displayed when hovered over. So we can play with every little aspect of this using this same principle. We can add further traces. So one of the other dashboards that I have built has multiple traces on the same plot. I think I have about 10 on one particular plot because some of the points I want to point out specific data. We can add legends in and just build on what we have here. The next thing I'd really like to show is what we do with that next. So we've only done it for Facebook so far. So what if we wanted to do it for every single platform? That might take us a long time because it's more code to write. Yes, we can copy, paste it, put in Twitter instead of Facebook, but we might make an error. We might change something in one and then not go back and change it in another plot. So what we're going to do is now going to list all our different platforms. So I'm going to take our data set, I'm going to take our platform column. So we know that this has got Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter in it. We want to take the unique of each of those. So now we just have the 3 names in it. And we're going to put them into a list. Now, lists allow us to do a lot more now with our data. So it allows us to use this function, apply. And then what that means is we're going to go through that list and take each portion of it. So we're going to go through each element within our list and do something with it. So I'm going to go from 1 to the length of our list, so from 1 to 3. And we're going to do a function of x. So the first thing I'm going to do is use my x, my 1, 2, 3, to find out where we are along our list. So take the list that we had, and it's now a function of this. So x is going to be 1, so it'll be the first thing on our list, Facebook. 2, Instagram. 3, Twitter. And that's now going to be our new data set. And then we can give it our variables. So we want to take our data table where our platform is equal to P. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, depending on which variable we're currently looking at. We're going to add our trace, our KPI, our average, our scatter. We can put our mode as markers or lines. And we can do layout to where the title is equal to P. So again, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Now, if we change one element in this, it means it's going to change every single one of our plots. We don't need to go back and do it 3 times. We only need to do it once, and every time we run it, it's going to be exactly the same. So we now have 3 plots, exactly the same as each other, but with the different sets of data. So we now have Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And if these had different KPIs, these would all be different along the bottom. Ours are very boring. They've all got KPIs 1 to 10, they've all got averages of 60. But it just gives an example that this could be completely different KPIs, they could have different names, and we would be still take that into account, still pull that data through, but it would keep all the elements that you wanted, so all your charts look the same, without you having to go back and redo every single one. So we've done things now that are good and great, but a lot of it you can do in Excel. And we've done them a little bit quicker, but I just want to show you now how powerful this is in terms of its speed. So we're going to build a new data set, a large data set. In fact, it's 3 million rows large. Now, you try and do that in Excel, and I know from experience it's not going to cope. So we've got 3 million observations, and we're going to have 2 variables in this particular data set, where I put the value as a random number between 0 and 100. So, but we've still got our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And we're going to do the same calculations as we did before. We're going to summarize and find the average by the platform. And we can do that again very quickly. Just by clicking that, it's already found it. Now, obviously, a random number between 0 and 100, the average will be 50. So this is what we would expect to see. And we can do this and take this even further in terms of the average, the count, the sum. So all these might be different columns in an Excel spreadsheet. And if you can imagine grouping your data, finding each of these for a 3 million row data set, Excel couldn't do that. This can do it in a second. Where we have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, we have our average, our count, and our sum. And you can suddenly see where the power of this comes in, how this is going to change the way that you look at your data, how quickly you can do these things. And my personal opinion is that this language is very user-friendly. You might disagree with me. Maybe I'm just a bit crazy. Probably am a bit crazy. But I think by saying we're going to take our data set, we're going to pass it, we're going to group it by something, and then we want to summarize that data. It's all language that we are all used to, and especially when we're dealing with data. So let me know, is there anything here that is of interest to you, anything that you think you are currently having a problem with, that Excel isn't coping with, that you're having to repeat doing 101 times and you're tired of doing it 100 times, or tweaking something and forgetting to do it somewhere else. We've all been there, we've all done it. So can this help? Can this bring something to your work? Shoot me a message, let me know. I'm here to try and help you bring this into your work. So just give me a shout. And thank you very much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this demo. Have a great day. Bye.